Let's take a closer look at a very special area of an F1 car, the keel area. People also call it snowplow, T-tray or bib. That is the area underneath the driver just before the floor leading edge. It's the most forward part of the plank, and it's a flat carbon plate plus the part where the air splits into left and right. And because it is that hidden, you don't see it very often. But for the performance of the car, it is an important area, and teams come up with very different designs. First of all, how teams fix the floor and the mandatory plank underneath the car is subject to extensive development, especially now with these new ground effect F1 cars. But also before 2022, it was a very important area. So regulators wanted to avoid that cars are driving too low to the ground. To check that, cars need to have a plank underneath with certain measuring points. Check out my other videos to learn more about that. The plank itself should be a soft material. Often it is wood. The measuring points can be surrounded by hard material to wear them slowly. Usually that is titanium. So before 2022, F1 cars had flat floors, and in order to turn the large flat plate into a large diffuser, teams added some rake angle, so the car is lower in front and higher at the back. A problem now is that the rear is much higher above the ground, and sealing the diffuser to the tire vortices becomes a huge challenge. And at the front measuring point of the floor, the problem is that it's too close to the ground and wearing out too quickly. So teams were working on some kind of soft suspension for the front of the plank. There is some aero load on the plate which is pushing it down, so it needs to be stiff in pull, but it should be soft in push. So the floor wear stays within the legal limit during a race, even if the car is very low. First, that was a simple metal strip with a distinct shape, so it's stiff in one direction, and it can kink or bend in the other direction. And then teams developed this area even more to a state where they really have a proper suspension underneath the driver in the keel area, including wishbone, damper and spring, so they can fine-tune it to exactly the behavior they need. Here we also see linear potentiometers to measure the movement of that suspension. Sometimes teams use coil springs with a linear behavior, sometimes they use disc springs with a degressive behavior. So it's an area in which the teams invested heavily in the past years. And at this point I want to introduce today's sponsor of the video, REC Watches, a watch manufacturer who specialized in using original access parts from historic machines, including John DeLorean's personal DMC-12, Steve McQueen's TR-6 motorcycle, or the World War II Spitfire. Their latest product is the 98T/4, a limited edition watch made from the Lotus 98T car number 12, chassis number 4. The iconic car was raced by Ayrton Senna for the last 8 races of the 1986 Formula 1 season, and it had the legendary black-gold JPS livery. The watch was designed in collaboration with the classic team Lotus, which is run by Colin Chapman's son Clive. For example, the original plenum tubes of the car form the outer chapter rings. You can find traces of the legendary livery, the number 12 on the rotor, a sleek glassbox design, and the movement backplate decoration resembles the Renault EF15B engine. So if you want to have an exclusive piece of F1 history on your wrist, check out REC Watches with the link below. And now back to the video. So it's an area in which the teams invested heavily in the past years. And not just there. With the reintroduction of ground effect cars, the focus was not so much on the front of the floor, but for teams more on the rear of the floor. Now, if teams lower the cars, they create more downforce, similar to a hoover closer to the ground. The regulations in 2022, however, were still focused on the front of the floor, so teams started to create soft mountings for the rear of the floor. So when the car hits the ground, the skids wear less. This can be done by intentionally large tolerances, or foam, or even springs. And teams took this even further. Since the check holes were always just checked at one location, teams split their skid blocks and gave the part which will be checked a soft suspension. So teams built little springs between plank and skid blocks to allow skids to wear less, while the whole car is lower and has more downforce. Mercedes even claimed that some teams have disappearing skid blocks, so part of the skids disappear into the plank and are protected from wear where they hit the ground. So they always have the mandatory thickness, while the rest of the floor is worn much more because the car was running very low. Since there is a lot of performance in the floor in this generation of cars, teams spent lots of time and effort in the development of floor features, and the FIA is catching up step by step. So I hope you liked this little insight, and if you did, please consider to become a B Sport Club member for more videos like this.